Every single show on the Duckfeed network is supported just by people like you. Just like you. Look in the mirror. There's nobody else here. It's just you. It's just you supporting the network. If you do support the network through patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, thank you. If you don't, thank you for listening. But please consider it. A couple bucks a month makes a big difference. $12 a year ends up actually being a big thing. Big thing. So thank you very much for considering your support or for your support. Thanks.
This is Gary Butterfield.
This is Cole Ross.
And this is File Underwater, the show where we try to convince you, in spite of this episode of File Underwater, that R.E.M. is America's greatest rock band.
That R.E.M. is the sleepiest bunch of boys, and they just need to put on their caps, put on their pajamas with the panel in the back, in case in case the night happens, and
in case Peter Buck has to go poo.
Yeah.
Daddy Stipe, can I go to the bathroom?
And they need to climb into bed with their microphones and make this, which is harrowing.
Yeah, this is we're talking about Around the Sun, unquestionably the worst R.E.M. album. And when I say unquestionably, I mean it. I don't want to hear any fucking questions about this because this is. And I read some reviews of this. I was trying to find some people who like it, which I like to do when there's a big disaster.
Right.
And something that a review had a brilliant observation, and they said, and this is in line with something that we talk about on the show, they said, this is the first album where R.E.M. sounds like what people who have been dismissing R.E.M. their whole lives think they sounded like.
That's a pretty good one.
When I've been saying like, oh, if you think like R.E.M. is just like adult contempo, non-vital nonsense because like you heard Lose My Religion and didn't think about it very much, or something like that. This is probably what you thought R.E.M. has been for the entirety of their career.
Right.
But no, this is the only time they actually dip into their worst possible selves.
Right, where they become like the bizarro version, like where, I've done the time, so I might as well do the crime.
Yeah.
But crime is cooler than this.
Yeah, there's no crime.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a crime, but it's a bad crime. It's like tax evasion. Like it is not it's not particularly strong crime, and there's a lot of problems that we'll get into, like some of which, are illustrated by the reading and stuff that we've done, and some of which are just like so evident on the record.
Oh yeah,
where it's like this is not a good collection of songs. Like
it's really, really not. And like what I'm struggling with, like when it comes time for us to do firsts and worse, it's going to be a little bit ridiculous because like it's hard. And it's not hard for the reason that it has been in the past where there were like some obvious contenders for either of them. And I have to decide like which of these finer distinctions is there. There's like a compressor limiter on this where the highs and the lows are not that separate from each other.
No, I mean, I've got a high like that, a couple highs. It's like a 7-way tie for low. Like out of this 13-track album, like no kidding, like there's a string of songs on this album that I think are entirely like interchangeable and trash.
Yeah.
Like this is it's the same like in the reveal episode I talked about how some of the verses started too similarly.
Yeah.
But then
it took you a while to get to like, oh, this is the song that I remember liking.
Yes. Like this is where the melody comes in, but like the beginning is just gonna be those two chords back and forth, and they do that a couple times on reveal. That's all they do on this record. Like, and it's the verses and the choruses. Like and the bridges and the solos. Like it is just these songs are desperately underwritten, which is like the crazy thing that comes up when you hear about it and you read about the production, which is like that they were over tinkered with, and like that doesn't really come through to me. That sounds like Up and Reveal to me, which have a lot more. Like this is, if it's over tinkered with, like there's nothing that stands out,
right?
Like there's not a lot of like just identity.
Yeah.
any of these songs.
What I picture the over tinkering with, have you ever tried to shave your sideburns and get them even just by eyeballing it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take away a little bit here. We're going to take away a little bit here. Ah, shit. This one's higher. So I guess I'm going to match it up. Oh, shit, that's higher. That's what I picture it as until you're, Roberto Clemente and the
Mr. Burns.
Yeah. I told you to get rid of those sideburns. Like, that is literally what I think that tinkering came to. So instead of like brightening and bringing forward through the tinkering these things that will work, again, part of having a good idea is recognizing that it's good and making it apparent. I think that they just it was literally just them going in and overwriting themselves until they just planed away anything that might have been noteworthy.
Yeah. There are no rough edges, but there are no edges.
It is a perfect sphere.
There's just a series of spheres, and I love spheres.
Yeah. I'm looking at an orb right now, man.
Yeah, it is. It pains me to say such, but a sphere, you don't need an album of 13 spheres.
No.
And
also, I'm looking at the track list right now. There are only 3 songs on this album that are less than 4 minutes.
Well, that's a huge thing. That is this album's about an hour long, almost an hour long. It's 53 minutes or something.
Right.
And the number one thing we're going to talk about, we record these in pairs, but also every R.E.M. album kind of bounces off the last one for the most part. And we're going to record this and we're going to talk about Accelerate next episode. And that is the biggest mark of how much of a breath of fresh air that is, because Accelerate 30 minutes, it goes by in half the time.
Right.
Every one of these songs has, there's no structural playfulness, that it is all, verse, chorus, solo, verse, chorus, and that almost every single one.
The last verse, chorus, maybe they're going to bring in some vocal harmony and an organ.
Sometimes. Yeah, like an atmospheric wash.
Yeah,
is the best you can hope for, as opposed to a counter melody, which is something that this band is good at.
Oh yeah,
that is a defining feature of their sound. Is you get Mike Millsy up there to do the opposite. Do a counter melody on a chorus, and it's a big deal. They just don't do it, with one exception on this record, which is the single, which is R.E.M. can always do good singles. But they just decide to throw out everything. It's they forgot how to be a band.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening. I never listened to this initially when it came out. I read the reviews and gave the first couple songs a thing, but I was already kind of on my way out from R.E.M. And listening to it for the show, weirdly, out of every episode we've done for the show, I've had to listen to this the most because I can't remember it. I had to keep it was okay, I started preparing early anyway, right. But I was just okay, I'll give this another spin and see if anything else stands out. And I would get to track 4 or 5 on my way to the grocery store. It's too, that's usually I can get an album in on a grocery store and back run. I get back, I'd be about to track 5 or 6, and be okay, well, I'll stop, and then I have to start over again the next time. It's like a book, it's like a shitty book. I have to, where you're just rereading paragraphs. You start, I had to reread the sentence 17 times.
Yeah,
it's like that, but for music.
Yeah, and another thing that's frustrating about this, just while we're getting these generalities here, any one of these songs, with a handful of exceptions, would be the C- track that would be in the back half of an okay album, right? Nothing here seems like it would be completely out of place somewhere else. It's just, it's all in a row.
Yeah, I think that everything here needs a little work to get to that point,
right?
But nothing here doesn't have a seed where it could get to that point,
right?
The surprise to this is that they're still R.E.M. So some of the songs will have a competently put together melody in one part. It just goes on, the whole thing is just tempoed, it's too slow, happens too many times, gets repeated too many times, et cetera, et cetera. But there could be a seed, and there's a couple interviews where people talk about this, where they're man, the album that could have been, it would have been so cool. And it's I still have a hard time believing that. I don't think so. I think this song, this group of songs is not good enough, even with some work. But it could have been better. You could have made a C+ album instead of this is very bad. This is I feel like this is a D+ album.
Yeah.
And it is hard for a band of this caliber to do that.
Yeah. And so this is the most negative we're going to be.
Yeah.
I think that in general we have given everything a fair shake and come away like with it being kind of a multifaceted conversation about it. No, this is going to be like entirely down on this. So
yeah,
if that
on the
is
whole,
yeah.
there are a couple of songs I like most of, which I will call out. You know, like I'm not going to just like, you know, I'm not going to be performatively shitty, but this will be very negative because I think that we both feel pretty negatively about all these songs.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and let's try to get to the heart of how this happened here. So, Around the Sun released October 5th, 2004.
Yes. And at this point, post-reveal, which already had a very relaxed kind of pace to it, Peter Buck was really, really frustrated by how slow everybody else was moving. Remember, Buck was the person who basically has like 1,000 little side bands that he is working with. And he was set up against both Michael Stipe and Mike Mills, who are perfectionists. And he no longer had Bill Berry around to help him kind of be a taskmaster and say, no, put that down.
Yeah. So it's definitely Mills and Stipe being perfectionists, but also like it feels like everyone's pretty checked out. Like Stipe has a lot of these side projects, Buck. Stipe is still kind of doing this globetrotting thing, and Mike Mills is just kind of being, you know, he has this private life out of all these people and hangs out at home, is kind of unassuming, and like there's no sense of urgency. So it's not just like perfectionism, like, hey, we have to get this really right. It's just kind of like it'll be done when it's done. Yeah, you know, it's that kind of like way that perfectionism crosses over with like a kind of laziness.
Yeah, like a procrastination, right?
Yes.
Like they care about it intensely when they can bother to work on it, but there is a lack of commitment that leads them to put this down. And it is them putting it down and coming back to it repeatedly that has brought them, you know, to this point where they lost their way with this particular project, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of that.
And they were enabled by Pat McCarthy. you know, like McCarthy did nothing to like act as an actual producer on this.
Yes, like the second half of that job, which is not just getting the right sounds, but like, you know, managing a band. And like what a shitty job in a lot of ways. Like like I'm sure that sometimes that's very rewarding. We have all these grown adults and you have to be like, okay guys, time's over. Like you know, you're paying me, but like time to come back from Paris. Like it's time to get some work done, guys. You know, I can see that being difficult.
Yeah.
But they so I think like but at this point in their career, like I feel like anybody would have had that experience with these guys. You know, like it is they just were probably not super easy to work with,
right?
At this point. And they talk about how they're like, you know, they're not really operating as a unit. They're talking about how they're not really talking to each other,
right?
You know, it comes up in the reading. So there's been some kind of lineup changes as well during this gap between Reveal and Around the Sun. They replaced Joey Waronker, who is the drummer, with Bill Rieflin, who is a guy from Ministry. Yep. Ministry drummer who like, you know, is known for, you know, kind of big drums. Weird that they had him on this bad boy. Like we got to get the Ministry guy for Around the Sun,
where nary a drum will be heard.
Yeah, I honestly I'm trying to think of what drums I can think of that like wouldn't be drum machines. I guess there are drums in Leaving New York.
Most of the time, the drums come in after the 3-minute mark.
Yeah, it's like they're using them like synthesized strings.
Yeah,
like drums.
Yeah,
so bad.
And they also kept, Scott McAfee and Ken Stringfellow on, who kind of formed this band within a band that kind of appeased Peter Buck's desire for forward movement. So they were working as a 6-piece when they went into this. Again, was Scott McAfee on as an additional guitar, and then Ken Stringfellow doing most of the keyboard and synth multi-instrumental stuff.
Yeah. Yep. This is his time to shine.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't consciously set out to make Reveal again, or, you know, walk in some of the same, you know, let's say tire treads that they left down. It just happened anyway. And, you know, it was due to, again, that lax process and their habits, right? And additionally, around this time, it's a little bit revealing that most of them said, hey, Reveal is the best thing we've made. Why not continue like that? Like they were name checking it as like, okay, that's what we have to live up to.
Yeah. Which is weird because there's it's something that like is interesting that comes through in the reading. We talked about it last episode, but like Reveal is a big flop here. It's just big overseas. Like they're in Europe, like R.E.M. has always been bigger than they are in the United States. So they can do something, they can say like, oh, this is one of our best selling albums, but just it's not universal. Not that like, not to be Americentric. I'm not saying that like only this area counts, but they weren't listening to any of the negative feedback that was coming from their home, from the States.
Right.
Like that was not to be nodded to. And it is, this is not, if they had literally made Reveal 2, like we wouldn't be complaining about this as much.
Right.
Like this is taking that trajectory. Like it is the worst things about Reveal.
Yes.
With no good songs. So there are elements of like, there are elements where Reveal is also very sleepy, but this is just, it's all sleep.
Yes.
And that's the issue. So it's like they forgot the good parts of Reveal. They were like, oh, if what people liked about Reveal was the sleepiness. What if we went full bore sleep?
Yeah.
And kind of dug that. So they recorded these demos at the Warehouse in Vancouver in 2002 and 2003, and apparently had like a lot of material.
Yeah.
None of this stuff is available. So
No.
as kind of a side note for the remainder of the show, there's almost nothing in supplementary listening.
Right.
They kind of stopped doing B-sides. The fan club dried up. If there are demos, if there are things like that, they're not out there.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wait, to stand first in line to get our 20th anniversary edition of Around the Sun to like hear any of this.
To be the only two people in line to get the 25th anniversary.
Yep. And when I'm 60 or 50, I'll be up there, and then I'll be able to hear these demos that would have made a great album. The demos of original songs that ended up on the album also are reportedly very different. Kind of before that tinkering, and people say they're good. Again, though, I'm skeptical because I feel like the problems with these songs are very structural.
Yes.
Or just are really down to like where you're putting verses, where you're putting choruses, what chords make those up. Like it is the building blocks of the songs that are not good.
There's also like this weird kind of miscommunication that happens. There was a quote, I forget what publication it was in, where Michael Stipe, pretty late in the production process, when he was talking this album up, said, "Oh, this is like the most chaotic group of songs we've ever done," or something like that, which is entirely counter.
Yeah, wow. Like how do you either the songs were very, very different. It was Stipe being Stipe, and thinking of this from a different angle, because even if you think of it like, imagining he is a single issue voter and he's like thinking mostly in terms of lyrics, right?
Right.
Lyrically, this is not the most chaotic they've been either. Like this is some of the limpest like Stipe work that we've had. Like the lyrics here are not particularly good.
Yeah.
So I don't know from what respect that could be the case, unless there is just like a warehouse full of demos that are just weird, wild, like crazy songs. And we know some of the songs from Accelerate were recorded during this time.
Yeah. What is it? Man-Sized Wreath. I'm Gonna DJ, I believe, had been in the works around this time as well. Yeah. It's like they took all of those and said, no, let's just save these for 4 years down the road.
Well, and we talked about them last episode because I had the sequencing wrong a little bit, but like Animal and the remake of Bad Day.
Oh, that's a huge problem with this, actually, and that's something the band cited, because after let's talk about Final Straw after this, just because of the flow. They stopped production on the album to tour in support of In Time. Of this compilation that we talked about last episode. I don't think that Bad Day or Animal would have saved this album. Maybe Bad Day and Animal, in addition to like Man-Sized Wreath, would have like buoyed it a little bit.
But can you imagine an album that had the embarrassment power of The Outsiders and I'm Gonna DJ?
Oh, jeez.
Like book ends, like opens with The Outsiders and ends with I'm Gonna DJ, and like it's just like, wow, how am I supposed to listen to this in public? Like I feel like I'm reading like Berserk on the bus. Like I need to hide my iPhone from people so they don't know what I'm listening to.
I have to roll up my windows. Oh God!
But it definitely would have answered some issues. Yeah. Like if they had done that. So not only was this tour like a killer to their pace and production, which we're going to talk about, but it also they cannibalized some songs that would have been kind of awake. Like I don't like Animal that much, but it sounds awake.
Yeah.
So it's got that going for it.
Yeah. And Bad Day maybe could have been this album's imitation of life. the R.E.M. Ass R.E.M. song that like ends up being like the killer single,
Yes.
So that's a bit of a bummer, but like, why would you break production to go tour for a compilation?
Well, yeah, it's a really weird choice. Like they talk about it in the book a little bit, and like the idea being a little, so they had to kind of make up to Warner Brothers a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like Warner Brothers wanted a hit, like wanted this compilation to sell a lot, and again, Reveal like kind of tanked in America,
right?
So they wanted to like, stay in good graces, and like probably sounded fun, and it seems like it was a real good tour.
Oh,
you know, so like. It's just it's. I think it speaks to that again. That like that thing that is shown as perfectionism, but that they just don't like give a shit that much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're not really dedicated to making this record, and like the next two records that come after this are better records. But there is like they're kind of done doing this.
Yeah,
they've been talking about stopping for a while,
right?
Yeah.
And it's very strange because they've entered they have emerged from the cocoon of the 90s into being in the this 2000s band, this kind of fossil or dinosaur or whatever other metaphor you want to use. Let's bring a whole zoo in here for this. Yeah. Let's get as many animals as possible in. No, but they've become this band that like tours and plays live very, very well. And from this tour all the way through to the Accelerate tour, those are 3 or 4 different stints where they've gone out and like pulled up their old material, and like even when they were touring in support of Around the Sun, playing more lively versions of these songs with backbone. So like this album didn't sell well, and we'll talk about that, but like they were still filling these gigantic venues, and this sounds like it would have been a lot of fun to go see.
This would have been, as far as like tours I lived through where I was like old enough to really get it. This would have been a real good one.
Yeah.
Because this was, a lot of the oldies. Mm-hmm. It's a best of, so they're doing best of stuff.
Yeah.
And they did some like on this weird lark. They brought back this weird pre-murmur song called "Permanent Vacation."
Mm-hmm.
And like Bill Berry started hanging out, and at one point, like, played that song with them.
Yeah.
In
Raleigh, North Carolina, like came up, did backing vocals on Radio Free Europe, and then played drums on Permanent Vacation, which is like a real throwback to their just like stupid dance rock kind of phase.
What if they had recorded that for this album? They eventually did like a studio version of that.
Yeah.
I believe I didn't find it, but I think I read reference to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I don't know. But like, in addition to that, they had Bill Berry coming by, making them sushi in the studio, and then like, hey, do you want to take the day off of recording to go like hang out on my cool farm? Like, yeah. Let's
go do farm stuff. Do you want to go have farm adventures? I'm like, yes, I'll have farm adventures with you, Bill Berry. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So they're all like good friends and stuff. Again, though, it feels like this like relaxed kind of hangout, and like, why should we have to do work?
Yeah. I mean, like the Adam Sandler comparison gets a little bit more apt, where every movie is picked based on its vacation potential.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Like, and we're going to see that because they eventually finish up the production. Like, oh, let's go to Miami. Let's go to Bahamas. Let's find these studios in these kind of like, vacation places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They played at the Hollywood Bowl, I believe, for a benefit concert. Bill Berry came out with them as well. Mike Mills was really like he did like a tribute to Warren Zevon, and then Tony Clifton interrupted the performance of Man on the Moon. So thumbs up.
Pretty cute. Would have appreciated that. They also performed at the Wiesbaden's Bowling Green in Germany, I believe, and they did a concert film called Perfect Square that the writer of our book hates.
Yeah.
He hates it, and I watched it online, and like it is, it's pretty annoying.
Mm-hmm.
It does have a lot of cuts, but man, like he hates it.
Yeah, he talks about like these gorgeous German teens, lip syncing along perfectly to these relatively recent singles.
Yeah, what is I hate these teens. Like it's okay, bud. Like it's very strange.
I'm sorry they're on your lawn. Yeah. All sympathy for you. And then they just took another break to work on their own stuff and came back like a year later. Like, oh shit, we have an album that's already...
Oh yeah, we're still in the middle of this.
We left an album on the stove.
It's like they're burning. this is just a general like slowing down, because they used to kind of put out an album a year or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it's like the pace has just slowed down very, very much so.
Right. And like they haven't disappeared. They've done this tour. They put out one of the tracks from this album, Final Straw. They just released it in kind of rough form, like a few days after the U.S. invaded Iraq.
Yeah. As this kind of protest song.
Yeah.
And even then, like, boy, like that song, like the book again. I think we're referencing the same book now, so it's going to come up more.
Yeah.
But it talks about that, like, it's like, oh, this one spot of kind of vitality, and if the whole thing had that, and it's like, no, that's a really boring song too. Like, they're in a boring zone.
Yeah.
That song is not like the redemptive song that if a whole album of that would have been good.
Yeah.
So eventually, again, they get back. They left their album on the stove. Burgess Downs talks about the production and just being like very relaxed and slow. And they mixed at the place called the Hit Factory, which is in Miami, which is some kind of factory for hits, I presume, and creates all the greatest hits from this album, such as Aftermath and Wanderlust, all your favorite R.E.M. songs that you didn't even know existed until now.
Yeah. So in looking at what went wrong here, there are two things that also that also stick out. They were stepping out and they were coming back. They weren't talking to each other, so they were undoing a lot of their work. Whatever the most recent thing recorded ended up kind of being the loudest. Nobody was in the room at the same time, and they would do a day of work, head out, get dinner, drink a lot of red wine, come back all logy and kind of loaded, and then just start fucking around with stuff.
Yeah. Just playing with knobs. And with Buck getting frustrated with this, like, this actually impacts the sound of the album, because eventually he like just ditched out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out of here. And then he wasn't there for the like, going in at night and mixing everything down. So like his guitar is barely audible on a lot of tracks.
Right.
On this, like, this is almost like an all bass and keyboard album. In some ways. Like, there's guitar on it, but it's so low in the mix in a lot of songs. And that's like, Buck was literally not there to advocate for himself. And just think about, like, people going through and turning down other people's work is so contrary to the R.E.M. ethos of like everyone trying to be the lowest in the mix.
Right.
This is everyone trying, going through and like fucking with other people's shit.
Yeah.
I don't know, you fucking Stringfellow. I don't know who's doing it, but it's really, again, very bad. And then Pat McCarthy left. Like, this is his last R.E.M. album, because you could not bring him back after this.
No.
There was some like efforts to kind of try to save face with that guy, and a lot of people said like, hey, it's not your fault. Nobody blames you. However,
get out.
If you read between the lines, like, yes, everyone blames you. Even though, I blame R.E.M.
Yeah,
I think it's their fault. So
yeah. The producer is there to guide and corral, but throughout their entire career, R.E.M. has kind of led from behind. They have worked as a unit, and their motivation failed, and like let them down.
Yep.
Yeah. So the band hates this album, and my question is, if you hated it so much, why did you let it out? What this whole thing reminds me of, you worked on this for 2 years. It's like that scene in Austin Powers when that henchman is like on the ground and the steamroller's coming at him. Like, all of you have a chance to move, but nobody does. All you just do is stand there screaming, and then you whine that you made something bad afterwards.
He's gradually getting away. Yeah. I think that it's literally they have 3 albums left on their contract.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if we put this thing out, we're a couple steps closer to the finish line.
Yeah.
So that's my guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Or like maybe they were a little bit more into it until it came out and everyone said they hated it and there's some revisionism.
Oh, they got 2 in their own bubble. They got 2 up their own asses.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just, everyone's like, oh, we hate it. And it's like, well, actually now that you say that, I hate it too.
Yeah.
I
don't blame me. I voted to keep it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, they've disowned it. They don't play these songs live. They don't, they just kind of don't show up. They did once, and then they struck them all.
Yeah.
From their thing. They did it for the tour, and then they quit.
Yeah.
So these do not show up on the Accelerate tour. No, they dislike them. Released at number 1 on the UK charts, which is fucking bonkers. I mean, it's just, it has nothing to do with the reception. It's anticipation.
Right.
But the first,
like Accelerate wouldn't.
Yeah.
This album ruined Accelerate's chances at doing the same thing.
Yeah. And then it sold embarrassingly. The first week sales figures didn't break 60,000. And the record has not gone gold in the United States.
Right.
Gold.
Gold.
Yeah. Which is just bonkers for a band this size.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, the reviews were very, very brutal. I went through trying to find, again, positive ones, and the ones that are positive, they're just, rewards, repeat listens, the thing we talked about, where it's that's the thing you say when a band can't, a band this good can't put out a bad album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These songs have to be good. The problem has to be with me.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of rewards, repeat listens, but most people are very brutal.
Yeah.
About this, and rightly so. I don't really get into let's read a Pitchfork style takedown of the Kings of Rock, but it's well, you're not wrong though. This doesn't feel cynical or anything. This is actually what this deserves.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So like I said earlier, they continue to be popular live. They decided to tour around this material, even though none of them were really down with it. And instead,
the weird thing about the material, so Peter Buck, I watched a lot of this tour footage. Peter Buck looks absolutely miserable.
He does.
Michael Stipe's having a pretty good time though.
Mm-hmm.
During a lot of it, and he seems genuinely enthusiastic about the material, which makes me think out of everyone who's been kind of contrite about this, Michael Stipe has been the least so.
Yeah,
I think that on some level he still kind of digs it. I bet you secretly he likes Around the Sun.
See, secretly he's all about it.
Yeah,
you can't say it because that'll lose you the cred. Yeah,
that gives you a scarlet letter. You cannot like this. It's wrong thinking internet liberals will but it's I think that he might be significantly more into it than the rest of the band.
Yeah. Mike Mills is very practical about this, just saying it sucks because it didn't live up to the potential, but we tried to do the best we could with it live. People might have expected to hear it. And Peter Buck is no, it was a fun tour, but nothing we brought to it new was worth it.
Yeah, it was trash. It's the quote from Peter Buck. It sounds like a bunch of guys who are so fucking bored with the material that they can't stand it. And it's that's exactly what it's, or it sounds like what it is. A bunch of guys who are so fucking bored with the material that they can't stand it.
Yeah.
So,
it was a pretty strenuous tour. They went to 30 countries over the course of 3 months in 2005. Which I think maybe is only rivaled by the Monster tour for how much scope there was to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very big tour. And they so during this time they celebrated their 25th anniversary, which is a long time for a band. Quarter century being a band is nuts. In Adelaide, Australia, Bill Berry called them, which is very sweet. Mm-hmm. And if you watch footage of this tour, you do have to sit through a lot of Around the Sun songs, but you also get to hear more lively versions of them.
Yes.
So some of them are a little bit more upbeat. I kind of Michael Stipe during this thing has this weird blue face paint thing he does.
Yeah, because the Electron blue thing.
I think that's kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
It's kind of he looks like a cool Batman villain. I don't know.
It's a little bit like a gosh, what's her name from Mad Max?
Furiosa.
Yeah,
he does look like Furiosa when he does that. Yeah. It is. I need to hurry up and put the take a screenshot of that, put it on Twitter, and then cap it as Mad Max Fury Road, 2016.
Yep. No, just make it the because that was also the cover image of one of their of the live album from that tour.
Yeah.
Just put it up and say hey, sequel confirmed.
Yeah, Fury Road 2.
Yep.
This time we'll reach the sun. But yeah, so the tour is not as bad as the album, but it's still I think that the tour, even hearing the more lively versions of the songs, really shows what problems are with the songs, because even when you're kind of into it for a second because it's live, they go on for 2 minutes longer, 2 whole minutes longer than they need to, not just 1 minute, which you might expect.
And then it's also juxtaposed with the stuff from the IRS years,
Yeah, which is of course all good.
Right. So R.E.M. around town. We have Mike Mills, who got to play as part of the Clemente All World Band in Pittsburgh for the charity run by Roberto Clemente, notable baseball player and philanthropist, which, hey, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. It's nice for him. Like Mike Mills loves baseball, man. There's two things I know from following him on Twitter. He loves like arguing with shitty Trump like supporters.
Yeah.
By quote tweeting them, like he exclusively quotes them. And brings up, and then baseball.
Yep.
The two things that Mike Mills tweets about. Peter Buck, of course, has 1,000 side projects. He put out an album with the -5. He was part of Robin Hitchcock's backing band, which is, he's collaborated with him before. And then did this collaboration with Robert Fripp, among like other people. Like there are a lot of people in this band called Slow Music, which sounds intolerable.
I like it. I've had it on the background. Yeah,
I listen to it. I think that it is pretty hard to listen to.
I mean, it's not something you pay attention to. It is a nice thing to have on.
Yeah. Like Around the Sun.
No, Around the Sun does not do that. Like the slow music thing. Like if you like Brian Eno's ambient collaboration stuff, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. It's a little bit. It's obviously not Around the Sun bad or anything. It's a weird thing it's like Peter Buck just being into everything is a weird part of him, because there are things that I think play to his strengths better.
Yeah.
Like he's not bad in slow music, but he's also feels interchangeable. It doesn't feel like a very Peter Buck project.
No,
to me. It's just like, I'd like to work with Robert Fripp, and who wouldn't? Like Robert Fripp's great.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was his band. They went on a tour in the middle of the production of this album as well.
Why not?
West Coast tour. Yeah, he went through several tours during this work jam.
Yeah. And then we have Michael Stipe doing his globetrotting, but also hanging out with Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow. Because, which is like, he's had this habit of, taking younger artists under their wing. This is a big whiff for him, in terms of like picking a horse to back. This would be like if he went with Oasis instead of Radiohead in the mid-90s.
Yeah. Like Chris Martin is not Coldplay for their, like, they have never been like the thinking man's band. They're not considered to be like particularly good. It is just like a pop band, but like Michael Stipe just like likes hanging around with celebrities.
Yeah.
Kind of in general, it feels like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like there's bits in the book about him being at award shows and writing these like after reports that are just like very name droppy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a weird thing. Like, again, it doesn't feel like the being in a band part is important to him right now. It feels like I am like this this elder statesman of kind of alternative culture is what's important to him, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. But like he was still doing like, support stuff. Like he raised money for victims of Hurricane Katrina, like by working with Chris Martin to do a bunch of covers of Joseph Arthur's In the Sun. Like that doesn't sound like it would be any kind of draw, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no idea why, it just like it again, it has nothing to do with what audiences want. It's everything to do with like what he kind of wants to do. And it's just like, well, this will work because I'm Michael Stipe.
Right.
It feels like, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start going through the record. Let's do it. Let's set them up and knock them down.
This is going to be hard because so many of the descriptors that I put in here can apply to a lot of the songs. So let's just try and get through it.
I'm looking at lyrics to try to remember and see if I can remember the melody. I don't have that problem with the first song, "Leaving New York," which I think is a pretty good song. This is the single, lead single, and this feels like it is recorded of a different piece to me. It's still very slow, but there are like when second vocals come in, things like that. There are counter melodies. Like I think this ends in kind of like a really beautiful round at the end of the song. Like it does that build up, but it's it's not just like, what if we added a very soft keyboard? Wouldn't that add enough texture to justify a new chorus?
Right.
It's like, no, like every chorus actually kind of builds on the last one in a real kind of pretty way.
Yeah.
Like this is the only song on this album I think is actually this is a good song. Like this would be, I would listen to this every once in a while. Like comes on every once in a while. Like for some reason, if I'm in like a Panda Express or some shit, like,
weird.
And they have the scratch and dent radio hit seat, on Panda Express radio.
Yeah.
This will pop up, and like I'm never unhappy to hear this song. Like, I think this is pretty good.
It's fine. It is a good song. It is the one that I think is the most competently done and like put together. Mostly because it actually has a melody in the chorus, which is nice. It still feels a little wallpapery in the world of like R.E.M. singles, even the like softer stuff, you know?
Yeah. It definitely has no like hard edges. And like, if another 20 BPM on this bad boy would make a big difference. Yep. Like just like the little bit quicker. Mm-hmm. Especially during these verses, which are very, very sleepy.
Yeah. But yeah, that last half of the song is good. The lyrics in this, you can tell it comes from a genuine place. Like Michael Stipe has always loved New York, even from the earliest visits that he did with Peter Buck back in the 80s. It says adopted new home. He was there, in 9/11. We talked about that last episode, helping people, by lending his cell phone out and, all of that good stuff. There's some of the lyrics, like you said, that just gets a little bit kind of meh. I know that he's come out and defended like leaving was never my proud as being, it makes sense to me, so it works. No, that's just a bad rhyme.
I just wish he had said style. Yeah. Because you can pronounce style in a way that would approximate rhyme that.
Uh-huh.
And it would have worked. And I used to always think it was style. And then I realized like I was filling in my head.
Right.
Like the better line. And then just actually listening to it critically for the show, it was like, leaving was never my proud.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bad lyric.
Yeah.
But like, the part before that, like that is, he's still in very plaintive, like just declarative statements that are true.
Yeah.
Mode for all these lyrics, but like, leaving is easier than being left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a real, that's a very true thing.
Yeah.
In general, in terms of like places and relationships and the like.
Mm-hmm. You might have succeeded in changing me, which is like an admission, of being somebody who is, mutable, somebody who's fallible almost. Like, yes, I can be impacted by something. It's not that I'm standing against, it is that I've grown as a result of this, which is a good sentiment if plainly expressed.
If you listen to the lyrics to this as being like kind of a breakup song, I think it's a lot stronger than as a love letter to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Like it being about a relationship that was of and in New York, as opposed to being about a city.
Yeah.
Then it actually, I think, reads a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
So like, I think this is a good song. I even before we did the show, like I listened to this from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only song on this album that has that honor, but I think this is a pretty good song, and it's literally all downhill from here. This is the lead single, so there is a video. There's not a whole lot to it. It's like Michael Stipe wandering around New York, Michael Stipe on a plane, going in a party and stuff.
A lot of close-ups of his cheekbones.
Yeah, a lot of him being a super hunk.
And then just like he's going to a party, and I think that Peter Buck and Mike Mills are there, like maybe in the background, but just when they need to have like, okay, well, there's a contractually obligated Peter Buck and Mike Mills content, they literally just fade them in playing their acoustic instruments, and Peter Buck looks so pissed.
He's very upset. Yeah. They're both playing acoustic guitars too, which like makes sense because that is the predominant sound of this, is just like layered acoustic guitars.
Yeah. And they're wearing them super high.
Yeah, it's pretty dorky. Not a particularly inspired video.
No.
Which is weird because I think they actually, one of the videos we're coming up later, I think is a good video.
Yes.
The second song on this, third single on the album, this is Electron Blue.
I think you mean Electron Blue.
Which is initially, like when you first listen to it, sounds like it could be from one of those, from one of the previous albums.
Yeah, it sounds like a stowaway from Up to Me.
It does. It like sounds like that to me too, but again, without like a real strong like chorus or movement to it. Like this is a very good example of the songs on this album feeling underwritten in a real bass sense. Like, oh, like this needed another part, or this needed some different, less space between these chords, more space between these chords. Like it's very weirdly stilted.
Yeah.
Like even the verse, like dun dun, like it's very like stiff in a way that doesn't do it a lot of favors.
Yeah, like the individual, like the components, I think the instrumentation in this is fine. I like that they lean into that electronic palette more, like in this, because it's unique compared to just kind of the acoustic wash of everything else. But you're right, it doesn't fit together. It doesn't hang together at all.
Hanging together is like the way I would put it. Like it's just like every individual part's fine. I think the chorus does need a little bit more to it.
It's just so repetitive.
Yeah. It's an incredibly repetitive song, and it's like again between 4 and 5 minutes, which like this is a single. Like you could make this kind of thing. And relatively upbeat. Like you could make this a little bit breezier, and it wouldn't hurt it.
Right. But yeah, it's like just the synth fuzz, incredibly simple 3-chord piano in the background, and then just like that delay and reverb of the vocals on reveal.
Yeah. Yep, everywhere. That kind of like general soft layer, like not very good. Like weirdly, like on the curve, like in the top half of songs on Around the Sun.
Oh yeah,
easy, but like not particularly good. This is Stipe's favorite song on this record.
Yeah,
he really loves it. And lyrically, like it's about a drug made of light, which is very strange to me. That's weird subject material for Stipe.
It's real snow crashy.
Yeah, or like Philip K. Dick, like Ask It feels like to me, and it's like. That's kind of interesting. It doesn't come through that much in the lyrics, Parts of it do, but then also there is a like, who am I? I'm just a guy. There's lyrics that just feel like filler stuff because that's that's this album.
Yeah. So, and they burned the video concept on Animal for a time. Like this is a recurring theme in Michael Stipe's head, the idea of light altering perception and stuff like that, as part of just his general suite of, hey, aren't the physical rules of the universe crazy, and don't they affect us? See also Gravity.
Yep.
And Falling. Yeah.
This moves on to track 3, The Outsiders.
Yeah.
Featuring Q-Tip of A Tribe Called Quest.
This is one half of a song that I kind of like.
I think that so it's, again, this is not as like people on our Slack were like, oh, is this more embarrassing than radio song? And I was like, whoa.
No, let's back up here.
It's actually not. It's like no one would notice it was on. Like, so it's like I might be embarrassed if I like put on a radio song on a boombox and like start dancing, like, that'd be embarrassing. But if I just put this song on a boombox, literally I would turn invisible. I could rob banks. Like nobody would look at me. It's like I do a concept comic about somebody who robs banks with a boombox with Around the Sun on it.
It's just the perfect camouflage.
Yeah. It's tired now. And you just go through
everything fades to black and white and gets kind of indistinct.
Yeah. Like the cover. Yeah. You turn into like the blurry guy. So I think this is like way less embarrassing, but there are like, it's not absolutely, like, there's nothing good about it.
Right. I just like this. So the embarrassing part is the Q-Tip rap, which is like, could you find a sleepier rapper to put on this? Like Tribe Called Quest is really good. Maybe get KRS-One back in to do something.
Yeah, Q-Tip doesn't really feel like he wants to be doing this very much.
No.
It's not some of his best work.
Yeah, but it's like it's broken. It's like 2/3 of an R.E.M. song, and then just like it fades out, and then comes back in with Q-Tip, rapping about Martin Luther King.
Yeah,
and like
which is weird. It feels very disconnected because at the very least, like radio song KRS-One was rapping about radio listeners. The first part of the song seems to be again like some point Stipe had a breakup, I think, and I think it was around here because this is like getting bad news.
Yep.
Like this is about getting information that is a sea change in your life.
Yes.
And then the back half is about Martin Luther King, which like I can imagine a connection between those two things, but the song doesn't draw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that first part. You're right. It is pretty sleepy, but like it leans into an atmospheric darkness. That the rest of the album kind of doesn't. It's a bass heavy song that's got this swaying synth to it. That guitar line over the chorus, it's pretty simple, but it's like high and keening. Like that climb. It is never, like in a way that it is not on other songs on the album. And I think Stipe's delivery on that is kind of like the dark, disaffected mumble is very good.
I think that that guitar line in the chorus is good, and then it lets itself down by going to very, very obvious kind of chord changes.
Yeah,
because that first, like where it hits that first crescendo in the beginning, that lost, it does that climb. It's very good, and then just does that, it like falls back down in a way that just feels like feels very you know, and I'm not like a songwriting snob. Like I don't mind, you know, 1-5-4s and all these like structures and stuff, but it's not something R.E.M. does a lot of the time.
Or didn't used to, you know.
Yeah, didn't used to, you know, like there is like an R.E.M. kind of set pattern, you know, musical or like mathematical pattern to like what relation their chords are in.
Yeah.
You know, there's like, you know, they do a lot of like A minors, D minors, like that happens all the time in their music. And this isn't that. It's something more conventional, what happens in the chorus. So it's like, I think instrumentally, like kind of palette wise, it's good.
Yeah.
I just think that, again, underwritten, like, you know, come up with a stronger melody here or make the verses a little bit more interesting because this chorus is very conventional.
Yeah.
You know, or integrate the rap. Don't like literally have it stop and then come back in. Like you could have just added the Q-tip rap to the end of any of these songs with that structure.
Yeah.
You know, it's very weird. And the beat is real boring. Like it's supposed to be this kind of like trip hop, like, you know, low key rap beat, but the beat itself is very, very like bland. I think. So it's like, it's not like a terrible song, but it's just not there. You know, it doesn't lean into the most interesting elements of itself.
Yeah. The, So the chords in the chorus are E, M, D, G, A minor, E minor, and then D and then E minor, which is like that is an R.E.M. ass chord progression.
There's something about that second after the first chord, that second set of it doing that fall, which sounds a lot like
it's just going down. It's going down the other side of that rise on
like
the
that.
same chorus. Yeah.
Like it sounds very conventional to me.
Yeah.
I think what it is it's going downstairs, whereas R.E.M. chords don't generally do that. There's like usually a little bit more dynamism, like as far as how far apart.
Yeah, like they will escape from a rise as opposed to retreading it.
Yes,
is an awful lot of like we're noticing. I think.
Yeah, or they'll just like, let's, you know, we hit this rise, like let's go up higher, and like I can't, you know, I don't have the specific examples at the top of my head, but like
stand
that, stand it happens, or like the last like several albums we talked about some part where like Stipe is like literally hitting the top of his, you know, his range. Like there's like a keening part of a song where he like kind of breaks at the top, like the melody will go up to the top and then subvert your expectations. You think it's going to go back down, and he'll actually just go higher. That happens a lot in their songs. It's just, it feels like it's doing the predictable thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Can I share an anecdote about listening to this song?
Yeah.
So I had to put this on in the car so I couldn't distract myself. Like I was just like focusing on the road, listening to the songs, you know, can't go start like dusting the house or something like that.
Yeah.
The Outsiders came on and it went, you know, through the R.E.M. part, got to the Q-tip part, and then it just kind of like faded away. And then came back up, and it was back to the beginning. I was like, oh, are they reprising the same verse? That's kind of weird. And like, oh, there's a chorus again. There's this. Wait, did they literally just, because I'd forgotten about this? And then there's Q-tip again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I looked at the time, and it's like, okay, you've got like 2 minutes left. I'm like, wait a minute, that I've been listening to this for like my entire drive. What's going on? What happened is I used to have this in my library because I ripped it from the actual library, like the Mansfield Public Library. And Apple Music brought in a duplicate of this. So I listened to The Outsiders twice in a row and didn't notice anything was wrong until Q-tip came in and started saying the same stuff. I like, this speaks so lowly of the album that I was like, oh, they would just like double the song over again. Like they would just copy and paste it and like fade back up into the same verses.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know, who would be surprised?
Yeah.
I feel like that's actually, that mistake could be made of almost every song on this album.
Yeah.
You know, it is one of the more damning things about this. Like it is, they all sound like they could just be, you know, you just literally repeat the same thing.
Yeah.
So move on to Make It All Okay. God, that fucking title. Which is, again, you know, talking about having kind of one part that is like a melody, but again, very conventional. That like this beginning, you know, threw away the ballast, rode your boat ashore, didn't you now? Like that didn't you now is very conventional, like Bread, you know, like 70s soft rock.
Right.
You know, to me.
God, Bread is such a funny band.
It's a really funny name. And that's the hook, because you get into the pre-chorus part and the chorus part. And it's like something that happens a lot in this is that the songs are so low tempo that there's like a lot of space between words. So a lot of these choruses become very plotting in how he sings them. So it's like it's a long road. Like there's like these pauses behind it, and becomes weirdly percussive but slow. And this is a really good example of that in this, and that's going to be true of like it's how I can remember a lot of the songs coming up. It's just like him just kind of with large spaces between the words, like hitting those syllables. So like there's like almost nothing to this bad boy. Like I find this very difficult to like latch my mind onto.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I don't have an awful lot to say about this. I've listened to this so many times this week. I've listened to the album 2 times today, even.
Yeah.
I cannot say a single thing about Make It All Okay. In my notes here, I say, I guess the organ that comes in the back half is kind of okay.
Yeah.
Like my bullet point is a question, Gary.
It's very bland. And again, very like 70s adult contempo.
Yeah. Final Straw, which is the protest song that we talked about, they put out early for the Iraq War. This is a kind of cleaned up and around the sonified version of that. It's overtly political in a way that they haven't really been since, maybe Document or Ignoreland. There was a definite break where they decided to make their politics a little bit more subtle. Yeah. This is
just wait for Accelerate, because Accelerate's like it's all that.
The administration and the policies. I don't agree.
That is pretty much what this is. Like this is very like I have a very hard time with the lyrics of this. Who died and lifted you up to perfection? I have a very hard time with the lyrics of this.
Yeah.
It's just like this is not what I think of as R.E.M. Like them doing this, just stating like, yeah, things are bad, buddy. And it's like, I agree with you 100%,
yeah,
but
you're on the right side of this.
You're just like, just saying it. And like, maybe it's looking at it through 2017 eyes, that this seems even more quaint.
Yeah.
And more kind of ineffectual in protest.
You look back on 2004, like, hey, how many levels of just like shitty president are you on? I don't know. This is our second Bush. Oh, my sweet summer child.
Just you wait.
Yeah.
Yep, just you wait. Yeah. Like as far as like the song itself, like it's a protest song. It's an acoustic guitar kind of based protest song that has like this to me the verses of this feel very Reveal to me. The chorus is a little bit at the end of it when it does like the not again ding, 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 not today, like there's like a little bit of kind of catchiness and liveliness that comes through in the chorus, but not very much.
And
I think the lyrics are mortifying. Personally.
I think that the arrangement on this isn't that great. It's either the arrangement or the mix, because like if they just kept this in the spirit of being a protest song and made it as bare bones as possible, that would have served it better than what we ultimately got here, which is Peter Buck's fast acoustic guitar doing Peter Buck style stuff on that, but then just like this watery and muddy synth behind it that just completely washes away any of like the rawness that I would want out of a protest song,
Stringfellow. Just I mean, and that goes in with the book alludes to a raw or better version of this as well. That I have not can't really imagine it being like super good.
Oh, the lyrics are still there,
Yeah. Yep. So
and this is paired up with its gentler, softer twin in I Want It to Be Wrong.
If you saw Final Straw rock too hard.
Like, whoa. Don't stop
Slow it down, Grandpa. I can't. I can't handle that. And man, does this again that like everything is too slow. Like, told you that I wanted to. Like it ends up being like very plotting because the tempo is just too slow. To be wrong. Like it is just like, I don't know. Pretty rough. Like he mentioned Jewel Brenner again in Westworld, which I always like that as his baldness muse.
Yep. He's got a couple of sci-fi references in this outside of even Electron Blue that are pretty good.
Yeah.
This among them. Yeah. I don't. This is like I can get down a little bit with some of the sentiment behind this, like because it is about being like feeling alienated like, oh, this doesn't feel like my country, which 2017, again, I feel that, it just you have some of these lines that end up being, okay, well, first you have, the rodeo is staged, gold circle, goat ropers and clowns, a rumble in the third act, tie 'em down and burn 'em down, tie 'em up and burn 'em down. Like, okay, that's fine, cool. But then you just get down to blue plate special analyst sells in SUVs. Like, were you just looking out the window? You saw somebody on a cell phone with an SUV? Like, you had, like, that's the same verse. Like, that rodeo analogy, I was kind of down with it. Okay, fine. And then just like, it's the mid 2000s. I love the 80s. That 70s show. Like, are you just naming things that are happening right now? Yeah, I guess you are.
More or less. Pretty embarrassing. And like, again, there's some kind of seed here of something like in those lyrics you're talking about, or something to that melody, but some elements of the melody, but just like way too little, way too late, not good enough. Yeah. Even like, so you get to the chorus where he's like, and I don't understand, and it's like kind of good, but like guitar's doing that just becomes this like the slowest arpeggio, like, ding ding ding, like I don't know, it is incredibly too slow and boring. And so they make an attempt to wake things up here. Another song I have a lot of problem with here, which is Wanderlust, the fourth single from the album, which is starts out okay, and it does sound awake.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most rocking song on this record by a lot, and it is not very rocking at all. Lyrics are terrible, like the most generic bullshit. But again, when I talk about these things being underwritten, there's no melody to the chorus.
Nope.
Like, it just doesn't exist. Like, it's kind of amazing. Like, they kind of try to sub in this time signature thing and do this thing in 7, which, like, I'm always down for something in 7.
Yeah.
But you still need to sing over it. Like, you still need to have something happens. And he just kind of shouts out these, like, bland sentences.
I got my signals crossed. It's overwhelming because.
Yeah, got my signals crossed. Like, and it's the same chords as the beginnings of the verse. So you don't even really know when the chorus happens.
Yeah.
In the song, like, what a terribly like written song. Like, from a musical perspective, this is very poorly written.
Well, I only knew it was a chorus because of the 7/4, and like, I love a good 7/4, but like when that gets amazing is either when an entire song is in that, like that Broken Social Scene song, which is amazing, or like when they pepper it through in unexpected places to kind of have this borrowed beat, to kind of throw things off. Like, ideally, you should feel it without recognizing it. It is so apparent that just like, okay, we're going to switch 3 extra beats on this per measure for this chorus for a couple of bars. We're going to go back into it. It feels so entirely transparent in a way that like that should not be. Like, that shouldn't be out front.
Yeah, it's very obvious, and I think part of it is it's the fact that it's inelegantly put together, and it's the only thing going on.
Yeah.
In this chorus.
Yeah.
And you watch him play this live, and like he jumps around like a maniac during the verses, gets to the first chorus, and then like you don't actually see this, but I can just imagine all of them just being like, okay, 3 more minutes. Like we did the high energy part of this, and now what do we got?
Yeah. Well, what we got is like R.E.M's version of The Passenger, not the cover they did, but like this feels incredibly similar to The Passenger to me.
It does, with like a real like The Passenger is like,
it's a good song.
Yeah, it's like it has different problems. Like, it's very similar as far as the guitar tone, and there's like it's still doing that Passenger thing, but it's not like Passenger has like a strong melody. This, in no part of this, even the verses, which are a little bit better than the choruses, don't have a strong melody.
Right.
They just have a melody. Like, really disappointing, because like I had forgotten this existed, the song, and I listened to it and I was like, oh, this does like sound kind of awake, and like I am, I wanted to be wrong. Like, I am desperate to like give this album like something nice to say.
I'm a boy in a wall. Throw me a rope,
Yeah. I want to get on a high speed train away from this worst joke ever told. I just can't do it because it's just not good enough. And then to follow this with fucking Boy in the Well, and like, man, how does this get written? How does anyone write this song? Like, Boy in the well, like, done and plod.
Sinking, feeling See it, feel it, mock, yeah, ing, yeah.
Like huge, just like galaxies long spaces between these words because everything is just too like, it is too slow. Like I just don't.
It's like somebody spilled their drink on the mixing console and like just set the BPM, like cut the BPM in half from
or you have your record to 33.
Oh yeah,
you know, like your record player, and it's just like I'm gonna like buy I'm not gonna buy a record around the sun, but part of me wants to so I can like literally speed it up and see what these things sound like.
Yeah,
you know, I can just do that in Audacity.
Yeah,
but I wonder if I can find karaoke versions of these and like pitch shift these up a fifth.
Yeah,
and see what these sound like if they're awake.
Yep.
You know, God, this fucking song, man, it's real bad.
That's the middest of mid tempo. Boy, oh boy. Like it has two choruses. The second one's better because it is not just the da-na, da-na thing that we talked about, but like there's not much more to it. And it does the Around the Sun gambit trying to save itself with an organ, and it doesn't really work.
No. Yeah, pretty rough song. The next song, this is my second favorite song on this album is Aftermath.
Yeah.
This is also semi-awake, and I think this is like 80% of a good song. I think this is almost a good song. I think Aftermath is pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's do the grudge match.
I mean, it's grudge match. I just think it lays way too flat. It's pretty simplistic in a lot of regards, and I don't much care for the just the lyrical content of it.
I don't know. I think the lyrics kind of work. I think the chorus doesn't. I think it has the same problem as Wanderlust, where the chorus is not different enough, and it's just these kind of declarative statements.
Yep.
I think the horns that come in are embarrassing. Like worked it out. Like I think that's embarrassing. But the verses, I think that is like a kind of a classic-y R.E.M. verse to me. And some of the detail of it I like as this kind of like running, almost breathless second person statements about things happening. I think is kind of charming. Not amazing. Like I don't think this is like, I would not put this on like a mixtape of R.E.M. songs. I'm hard judging on the Around the Sun curve.
Right.
But I think this is not so bad.
Yeah. I thought it was unremarkable outside of the presence of a guitar solo. I think maybe one of the only on the album. One of those on the album, rather. And I think the video is very good.
The video is really fun. It's just them like walking around in a green screen. Yep. But doesn't need to be green screen. Like they could just like, what if you green screen someone on the area they're actually at?
Right.
So it's just like a little bit off and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's got kind of a Tim and Eric aesthetic too, because like the chroma key is all bad and everything has like this digital kind of artifacting that goes on, like pixel drift and things like that. Like it's pretty good. Yeah.
Peter Buck gets on an elevator with a book about evolution in his pajamas. Like he's even having fun.
Yep.
Apparently there is a faster version of this as well.
Yeah.
That was in the there's recorded at some point in Ditch that is supposed to be a little bit better. Yeah. And like this is not super slow. Like this could be like way, as far as slow songs on this album.
Yeah.
But it's not like it also couldn't be, every other song on this could be bumped up 20 BPM. This could easily be bumped up 10 and take it.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get that, listen to the live version, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah. So,
the audacity to call a song this slow "High Speed Train,"
dude. Like, jump on it. Even does it have like it's like pitch shifted like down vocals?
It's like
it even sounds slowed down. Jump on a high speed train. Like
it's a little bit like oh gosh, that one Beck song from Sea Change where they literally did that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I forget that. I don't care for that album one bit. But man.
Jump on a high speed train.
Jump on a high speed. Yeah.
Jump on a it's like Muzzy, like two Muzzies teaching you Spanish. Like it's Muzzy es grande and Muzzy es bonito. Like a musical round. The slowest fucking thing. Like, how does it get slower? Like, it was, we just did Boy in the Well, and then Stipe's just like, wait until I tell you the worst joke ever. Like, fuck, man, you can't keep doing this. Like,
you think you hit it now? Wait till you drive it. Yeah.
It's just woof.
Oh God. And again, like, speed this up and it might be okay, because I like that weird, like, junk percussion that they have going on. The Spanish sounding guitar and piano, like, those components are kind of okay. I like the fact that the chorus is around. Those are my 3 bullet points on this song. Like, those individual parts could be okay. It's like if they opened up the elevator in The Shining, and instead of having like the big tidal wave, there was just a slow like drip, 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 drip out of it. Like, just
It is like the water torture of songs. Like, it is just a slow, steady, lockstep drip of just like sleep. Yeah. It's like a NyQuil IV. And then again, like, so man, this and then they have the audacity to follow that with the worst joke ever, which is again just like almost totally interchangeable with like Boy in the Well, worst joke ever, and High Speed Train. Like, there's very, very little to tell them apart. Yeah, to me, like there's like this trio of just like, how do you make that same mistake that many times? Mm-hmm.
Like you you wouldn't have done this if you didn't think it was a good idea.
Yeah. I have no idea how this happens. Like, worst joke ever has only 2 verses, but still somehow ends up being between 4 and 5 minutes long. And I don't understand how you pull that off.
Ooh,
like, it's just
one of the
pace.
It's one of the 3 songs that is below 4 minutes. At a svelte 3 minutes 38.
Oh, so almost 4 minutes. so it's only a minute longer than a pop song should be.
Right.
Yeah, it is. This is a very bad song as well.
Yeah. It's attempting some lyrical playfulness with it. About like setting up for the worst joke ever, but then pulling away and just like, hey, isn't life absurd?
It's very hard to be playful though when the music is like that. That's the thing that we're talking about that's missing from this. Or one of the things is that there is no sense of playfulness in any of the music in this. A little bit in that like Wanderlust and Aftermath, like horns and or time signature stuff, but most of the songs have no sense of like, quirk. To the music at all.
I don't listen to anything in this and picture somebody in the studio saying, hey, wouldn't it be fun if, which is a huge instinct that you have to have, right?
Yeah. R.E.M. used to talk about a lot, like making themselves laugh with like musical jokes. Yep. Like there are no jokes on this record. Like it's no, it is humorless. So we move into, we're not done, guys. Like it keeps coming. The hits keep coming and the hits keep coming because we move on to The Ascent of Man, which at the very least, like this is a really annoying song that at the very least is not, you can't confuse it for, if you took like a 15-second snapshot, you wouldn't think it was another song on the record.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say that's not good enough.
I really don't like this.
This is really bad.
Yeah, I'm going to side. I'm going to side with boredom on this as the lesser evil than just like straight up annoyance.
Then yeah. Gonna go, yeah. What is even happening?
Yeah. No, I'm not having it.
If you wrote a book, it wouldn't be called The Ascent of Man. It'd be called Life and How to Live It. Stipe. You're breaking my heart. The Ascent of Man. Yeah.
I marked your chapter with a catamaran. Like,
okay, rhyming dictionary.
Boat.
Like I've been to the rhymezone.com as well, my friend. And just like, I don't know, man. This is just the Yaz too. They start coming at like kind of random intervals too. It feels like at some point they just start like creeping in. Like it's like playing Five Nights at Freddy.
Yeah,
it's like an R.E.M. song.
I had to check and make sure like a program wasn't running that just like procedurally generated how many Yaz there would be. Yeah.
Like, I don't have to go check my food. Yes. Yeah. Oh my god.
Jeez. Yeah, like they mix
extremely rough.
But like they mix that yeah with like monster muttering. Like I understand you're not the king of comedy. You just told the worst joke ever. Yeah. And then it's just like it turns all into yes. It's all yeah, and I'm like no.
The high speed train men's chorus has come to add in some vocals at the end of The Ascent of Man. Something, the ascent of man. Yeah! It's very bad. It's like the song that like I would show to people if I wanted them not to like
music.
Again, just embarrassing. Yeah, music or specifically R.E.M, but music in general. Like very embarrassing. Yeah. And then the album ends with the titular
Around the
Sun.
The first time they've done this, had a title track.
Yeah.
I like Around the Sun. Not the album. I like this song.
Yeah. I think it's okay. I'm very beaten into submission by this point. Like I am pretty angry. Like as somebody who's had to like similar. You talked about being in your car. Like I also had to set and like force myself strap myself to the bow to like listen to this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And just by the end, it's very hard for me not to be very resentful. So like I recognize that on the curve, like this is definitely in the top half. Of Around the Sun songs. Like this is not bad, but I'm just like we just got through that store and like be cranky like
it's a little bit like I came up for air at this point because I do think that like this is very well composed.
I think that's true.
And like the lyrics are thoughtful, like, and I like, as much as I like a dark R.E.M, like this optimism actually works pretty well. I love the line, oh gosh, hold on to this boy a little longer. Just you talking about like, hey, maybe the world has a chance, like, give me the strength to actually speak up and affect the change. And it's, combined with just this wonderful orchestration.
Yeah. It does go on too long.
Oh God. Yeah. I should have ended after 3 minutes.
Yeah. But it is, it's fine. Like, again, like, I don't know what would have been what I wanted from an ending track of this because anything that came before it poisons the well.
Right.
Like it just like, yes, like you can come up for air, you get to this last song. It is very easy to come up for air by just hitting the stop button and doing something else.
Yep.
As well. Or, we're just switching to a different album, and that's like the intense temptation I have.
Mm-hmm.
So like first and worst, it's like, it is extremely tricky. Because it's not such an unqualified win. I'm going to say my first is Leaving New York.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this. It's not like Imitation of Life or something. It's not like, oh man, we can't count that because it's so obviously good.
Right.
It's not so obviously good. I just think it is like a cogent composition and, good, like a good vocal performance, and kind of interesting, kind of vocal arrangement.
Yeah.
And that'll do it for me.
Mm-hmm. My first is going to be Around the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that Leaving New York is incredible. It's well done. It just doesn't feel inspired to me. In a way that Around the Sun actually does. With them kind of working for probably the last time with the full force of a studio and production behind it, doing something that does sound like a recording instead of a performance, right? So like taking all of that into account, yes, Around the Sun, like that would be the one I would go for. If the Outsiders didn't have that rap section, that might have been a contender, but it is hard to ignore that.
Yeah, that'll be controversial on the old Slack because people on Slack really hate that song.
Oh.
I was kind of surprised too. Like I don't hate it as much as you do. I don't love it, but I don't hate it as much as, or I don't hate it as much as they do.
Yeah.
Rather. Yeah.
What's your worst?
Wait, worst is really hard because like, again, that entire, Boy in the Well, High Speed Train, worst joke ever, are incredibly bad to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ascent of Man is very annoying, but the fact that they did 3 songs I think are literally interchangeable feels worse to me. You take a 10-second sample. I couldn't tell you what song we're in.
Yeah.
I can't pick
which of those 3 is most emblematic of the problem.
All 3. I can't pick. I'm doing I'm breaking the mold. All three of them get the File Underwater shit award for like not worth writing, listening to, or even talking about really. But here we are. So.
But here we are. We've done this. Yeah. And like I said, when we were talking about it, Aftermath for me, because not Aftermath. Fuck. That's wrong. Ascent of Man. Too many A titles. Aftermath is fine. Whatever. Yeah. Ascent of Man would be mine because
it's extremely annoying.
I'm more tolerant than you are of music that just kind of fades into the background. It's frustrating because there's nothing interesting to say. But like Ascent of Man is just like actively, I think, execrable. So
yeah, it's a little like Sonic-y. Like
you want Sonic? Let's just wait until the end of next episode. We're gonna get Sonic.
We're coming to the Sonicking, but like it's still it's nasal.
Gary, I want you to go down and look at that song and make a note that yes, there is a reference to Sonic in it.
Yeah, I will. Okay. Okay, so that's Around the Sun, a truly terrible album.
I had fun talking about it. More fun talking about it than listening to it. Sorry, playing it. God,
I did too, and I like that now. I've given it a fair shake, which was not true of any of the last actual R.E.M. albums. Mm-hmm. That's not true of I hadn't really listened to Accelerate particularly. Mm-hmm. Until now, or Collapse Into Now, and Collapse Into Now I think is actually like a very good album.
Yeah.
Like I've done all my listening for the show already in advance, and I like put it on for pleasure regularly. Like I think it's actually a really good album.
Yeah.
This is not that, and I will never listen to it again.
No.
Goodbye Around the Sun. It was not fun.
See you in hell.
See you in hell Around the Sun. And the band learns that, and for Accelerate to happen, and ultimately for Collapse Into Now had to happen. Around the Sun had to happen.
Yep. So
some flowers grew out of the shit. There's not a lot of, like we said, like supplemental listening. They kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah.
The B-sides are all, for the most part, bullshit. Lots of live songs. So it's like you can get the single for Wanderlust, and wouldn't you know it, you get a live version of The Worst Joke Ever Told. Like, great.
Ooh.
Like, lucky you. Somebody's Christmas came early.
Who do I owe the pleasure?
Yeah. So there's no fun B-sides really to talk about. The fan club doing the same thing. Like, it's like the band feels very like they have all these songs, but they've gotten so tight about, their unreleased stuff.
Yeah.
That like, there's just nothing, we know they have these songs, but we don't get to hear them. We just get to hear, again, live shit. And then, and the fan club at least is like old live shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's more interesting live shit, but still live shit. And then, of course, they did Christmas stuff.
Yeah. They did Merry Christmas, Everybody. It's a cover of a Slade song. Mike Mills on lead vocals. It's fine. I don't like a rock Christmas song, but
yeah. And I've always liked, I like Mike Mills on lead vocals. Mm-hmm. There's also a song called Magnetic North that R.E.M. has scrubbed from YouTube, which is rare. Like, they are generally pretty laissez-faire with that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I saw references to it. Like, if you search it, you found people who had like it as part of a playlist or the title of a playlist and stuff, but I couldn't find the actual recording.
Oh, weird.
So, and I looked, I tried I was like, oh man, I can find it through, like they have these services online now that will like take songs and show you what chords they are. Cause since I've been learning an instrument, like that's been very useful.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe somebody uploaded it to that before, and it showed me all the chords that are in it. So the analysis was still live, but it wouldn't play the song.
Oh, geez.
So it's like, and not the chords in order or anything. It was just like, these are the chords that make up this song.
Mm-hmm.
But that was all I was able to get about from Magnetic North.
Yeah.
So.
And then they also did Gentle on My Mind, which is a cover of a song originally done by John Hartford and covered by a lot of people. It's a quick acoustic ballad. Pretty nice, old country style stuff. And they did this for the Sounds Electric cover project, which is probably a benefit for something or other.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not bad.
Right.
But that's really it. Like I was expecting to find more, like untold tales.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Kind of a disappointment, but now we have it behind us.
Yep. We're done.
We're around the done. If you're listening to this, we are coming up on the end of the show.
Yeah.
Almost done.
We're almost done. This is coming out on early release, a day before we record the final batch.
Okay.
Okay.
So only if you're hearing this on early release.
Do you have like
time,
a day to do this?
Yes, to send in your responses, your final wrap-up thoughts on R.E.M, and that last clutch of albums at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Mm-hmm.
If you missed that deadline somehow, and we'll talk about it on social media and stuff, but if you missed it, I apologize, but once we run out of R.E.M, it's the same thing. It's very funny. It's the same thing that happened on Fireside Chat, where it's like, I can't believe you guys are running the show. Well, it's like, yes, we made that decision, but also we ran out of Dark Souls. We're out of R.E.M. Like we could, do live episode, live shows and stuff, but there's not that big a difference. And like, we're talking about the songs themselves, not necessarily performances. So we're not going to try to kindle this bonfire or anything.
No. And the 10 people who listen probably understand.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I love doing this show. Like, I'm going to be, it'll be cool when it's done. Like, we'll have this document of just like, commentary on every R.E.M album, but it is a thing that always had an end date.
Yep.
So,
yeah. So spread the word. This will continue existing online even after we run out of R.E.M content to cover, even if we don't continue the show. So direct your friends to this. If you are working on them and trying to, break down their resistance to listening to a podcast about a band they don't like, keep trying. Make yourself unwelcome in their home.
Yeah. Hey, buddy, I like R.E.M. Do you know of a podcast that deals with them? yeah.
Man. But otherwise, check out the new stuff that we have going on at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. And support us there if you can. We're really close, as of the time we're recording, to having our new show come up, which is a show that Gary's going to be doing.
Yeah, Heartbeat City. I'm very excited to start doing that. We have a pilot up on the Duckfeed Presents feed. You can listen to it and see what that will get you, what you're buying if you decide to patronize us to make that happen.
Yeah.
And then, again, that patreon.com/DuckFeedTV, supporting us is very helpful. Ratings, reviews, still helpful. And that's probably about it.
I think so.
So until next time, it is the end of the podcast as we know it.
And we feel fine.